and welcome to Cook with Tom. Today we're making one of my favorite dishes. This is a dish that means Sunday dinner, home with the family, something that when you bite into it, it makes you feel like it's warm and fuzzy inside. We're going to be making pot roast. A long time ago I learned the lesson that the trick to making good meat, doesn't matter what you're making, the first step and most important part of making a good piece of meat is buying good meat. When you're looking for pot roast, I personally prefer to use chuck. I also like to look for a piece of meat that's got a lot of nice marbling through here, because what's going to happen is as this cooks, all this marbling throughout the pot roast is going to break down and add moisture to our pot roast. In fact, have you ever had a piece of meat and at first when you bite into it, it tastes really juicy, but then as you chew it, you find that it just tastes really bland and dry all of a sudden? That's what the problem there is. You don't have enough fat in your meat. I know fat's bad, right? But you know what? We're okay with it here. So what you want to look for is something that's got a lot of fat in the meat itself, not necessarily the big ribbons of fat that run on the top or through the middle. That doesn't necessarily impact the flavor as much as the fat that's interspersed within the meat itself. That's what's going to make us a really good pot roast. To start off, what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put it right over the heat in our stove. I really like to use a nice Dutch oven when I do this, a nice enamel-coated Dutch oven. The thing I like about a Dutch oven is the thickness of the metal allows it to retain a lot of heat, so that when we go to browning this meat before we put it in the oven, it will cause a really nice crust to form on the outside of our meat. The reason we want that crust, contrary to popular belief, searing the meat does absolutely nothing to retain juices within the meat itself. That's actually an old wives' tale. What we want to do by searing this meat, it creates that nice brown crust. This pan does a phenomenal job. Again, the carrying capacity of iron is so good that when you put the heat down, it doesn't absorb all the heat out of the pan and drop the temperature of the pan down. It's so thick that it maintains a lot of that heat, allowing us to get a nice, good sear on the outside of this meat. We're going to take this pan, throw it over high heat, add just a couple tablespoons of olive oil, and we'll let that heat up for a while. While that's warming up, let's talk about our onions. I'm going to show you a couple of different ways to cut onions, depending on your preference for onions. The onion, you've got the stem end and you've got the root end. The first thing you want to do is just slice this thing right across the axis, so you maintain the little root, the little dangly tentacle end, and then again the stem end. If you're worried about, clean off that cutting board. If you want a smaller chunk, the easy way to do this is you just cut the stem end off. Now would be a good time to peel our onion. Then what you do is you just take your knife, make sure it's very, very sharp. Hear that? And you'll make some horizontal cuts with the onion, making sure to not go all the way through. By leaving that root end on, it actually allows you to keep the whole onion together. So as you're chopping, you don't have little pieces going all over the place. And then you'll take and do a slice, depending on the size of the onion you want, the onion slice you want, across going down. So you go horizontal, you go vertical, and then you just chop it up like that, and you've got your root that you throw away. Easy as pie. No, well, some pies are pretty hard to make. Got that. The other way, and this way is really simple to do as well, is cut both the root and the stem end off. Make sure we keep our area clean. Oh man, these are really pungent onions. I'm going to have to go get my swimming mask so that I don't tear up on camera. Then what you'll do is, you know how oranges, you've got little segments? Well, that's all you do here, is just chop like you were chopping segments of oranges. Then you've got these nice, and then the onions will by themselves will peel away. And you've got these nice long pieces. It all depends if you want dice or long pieces. I prefer the dice for this recipe. Some people really though like a nice big piece of onion in their meal. Sounds like this back here is warm enough. Oh, so we're going to take our piece of beef and we're going to set it down right in the oil. We're gonna let this set for a couple minutes. I'm gonna go wipe my eyes off, and we come back, we'll continue with Operation Pot Roast. This thing is getting really nice and brown. My eyes are no longer watery. But check this out, it's got this nice brown coating on the outside. Again, doesn't keep the moisture in, it just creates additional flavor. What we're gonna do now, while I was letting my eyes dry out, I chopped up some onions, some carrots, some celery. What we're gonna do is we're gonna do the old switcheroo. The reason being is I like to get a little browning on my onions because doing so, again, creates just more of that flavor profile. The most unappreciated thing that goes on in the kitchen is making vegetables and meat brown. Because every time you do that, all sorts of, commonly referred to as the Maillard reaction, creates all these additional flavors that really make up the flavors that you and I love. But by not making those, it can create really bland dishes. Trust me, let your onions, let your carrots, let your celery even get just a little bit brown. It really makes the dish. I wish you could smell this. It is so delicious. Another reason I wanted to mention about taking the meat out and letting it sit for a second, when I cook pot roast, I like to have the pot roast sitting on a bed of vegetables. The French refer to this particular mixture of vegetables as mirepoix, essentially 1 part carrot, 1 part celery, and 2 parts onion by weight. But by taking the roast and putting it on top of the vegetables to cook, it's going to allow more of that bubbling to happen underneath and essentially more of the flavors of the stock that we're going to make to permeate our meat, creating this deliciously flavored pot roast. And that's our goal. We want something when you bite into it, you're just shocked at how delicious this thing tastes.